Bienvenidos a Aspira English Academy. Gracias por participar en esta lección de nuestra serie diseñada para participantes de nivel avanzado en inglés. En nuestras lecciones avanzadas nos enfocamos en las técnicas del lenguaje utilizadas para hablar y escribir en inglés, y también practicamos el pensamiento analítico y la comprensión, leyendo y escuchando sobre temas controvertidos. En esta lección leeremos sobre temas que rodean el control de armas, sobre varias masacres de la vida real y los diversos puntos de vista debatidos en torno a este tema. Puedes pausar o repasar secciones del video cuando necesites más tiempo para analizar la lectura. En la descripción abajo de este video encontrarás enlaces para accesar materiales que acompañan esta lección. Esperamos que disfrutes y no te olvides inscribirte en nuestro canal de YouTube para explorar más videos y visitar nuestra página de internet www.aspiraenglishacademy.com. Revisemos nuestra agenda de hoy. Durante esta lección tendrás la oportunidad de revisar vocabulario que se encuentra en nuestra lectura sobre el control de armas, contestar preguntas de comprensión relacionadas con la lectura, aprender técnicas de lenguaje útiles para usar en debates y repasar medidas para mejorar tu aprendizaje en este tema. Esta lección es para estudiantes avanzados y por lo tanto la enseñaré completamente en inglés. Vamos a comenzar. Let's review some important facts about gun violence. Every year in the United States, a firearm is used in nearly 500,000 crimes. Mass shootings make up only 2% of gun deaths. Federal law also blocks the sale of guns to people who have been found guilty of unlawfully possessing or using controlled substances within the past year, including marijuana. Only a dozen of the U.S.'s 50 states require purchase permits for handguns. 110,000 gun-related deaths and injuries occur yearly in America. Remember, these are facts. They are not opinion or point of view. Before you begin reading about this topic, what would be your answer to the questions on the left? What is your point of view or opinion? Do you think schools should be gun-free zones? Do you think people should have a permit to carry a gun? Do you think people should be able to buy semi-automatic weapons? Please make a note of your responses to these questions before we proceed. Now let's review vocabulary that will appear in our reading today. I will share the word with you first and then share the definition in English. A penal colony is a place for prisoners that is difficult to escape. A massacre is the violent killing of many people. To initiate means to be the one to lead something. A crackdown is a serious attempt to prevent future crime. Swift means quick. And to retrieve is to get something back that you had before. To skyrocket is to suddenly go up in numbers. Easy access means that it's not difficult to get, find, and use something. A mental illness is a sickness that affects thinking and emotions. An opponent is a person on the other side of a debate. A rampage is uncontrollable violent behavior. And mandatory is required. It's something you must do. We will now begin part 1 of our reading. Follow along with the audio. The vocabulary words that we just reviewed will always appear on the right hand of the slide. After we listen to each part of the reading, I will ask you a question to test your comprehension of what we just read. Let's listen to the audio.
On April 28, 1996, in a cafe in Tasmania, a young man pulled a semi-automatic weapon out of his bag and began shooting tourists and staff at the historic Port Arthur penal colony. By the time he was finished, he had killed 35 people. This was just one of several mass shootings in Australia between the 70s and 90s.
Let's review your comprehension of Part 1. Who was killed in the 1996 massacre in Tasmania? I will give you a few seconds to think about the answer, or you can pause and rewind to the last slide if you wish. According to the reading, 35 tourists and staff were killed in a penal colony by a man using a semi-automatic weapon. We will now begin Part 2 of our reading. Follow along with the audio. After we listen to this part, I will ask you a question to test your comprehension.
Following the 1996 massacre, Prime Minister Howard initiated a serious crackdown on gun ownership. Howard worked together with the Australian government. They made a swift decision to restrict gun ownership. The government also organized a program to buy back weapons that had already been sold. Over 600,000 guns were retrieved. 15 years later, there were still no new mass shootings to report in Australia.
Question number 2. What caused Prime Minister Howard to crack down on gun ownership in Australia? I'll give you a few moments to think of your answer. According to the reading, Prime Minister Howard cracked down on gun ownership because too many people own guns and he didn't want any more massacres to occur. Part 3.
It is a different story in the U.S. Since the 1980s, mass shootings have occurred in several public places, including malls, schools, and places of worship. After a mass shooting, the sale of guns always skyrockets. Though studies prove that easy access to guns results in high murder rates, surveys show that many Americans still believe in the right to bear arms.
Question number 3. What does the reading say about murder rates and gun ownership? According to the reading, studies prove that easy access to guns results in higher murder rates. However, Americans still believe in the right to own guns. Part 4.
One of the worst massacres in U.S. history took place at Virginia Tech University in 2007. A student suffering from mental illness killed 32 students. Opponents of gun control argued that the students and staff couldn't protect themselves because they were in a gun-free zone.
Question number 4. What do gun control opponents have to say about gun-free zones at schools? According to the reading, gun control opponents don't agree with schools as gun-free zones because the school staff can't protect themselves against a student with mental illness. Part 5.
In 2012, a week before Christmas, a young man entered Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut and went on a shooting rampage. He killed 6 staff members and 20 first graders with a legally purchased gun. U.S. President Obama broke down in tears as he addressed the union. He called it the worst day in his presidency.
Question number 5. What happened at an elementary school in Connecticut? According to the reading, a man entered the school on a shooting rampage and killed 6 school staff members and 20 elementary school students. We will now go to the last part of our reading.
Like Prime Minister Howard, Obama immediately organized a team to address gun control laws. His proposals called for a ban on assault weapons and mandatory background checks for all gun buyers. Within 1 month of the school shooting, 1,000 more Americans had been killed by guns.
Question number 6. How did Obama's reaction to the Sandy Hook massacre compare to Howard's in the Penal Colony massacre? According to the reading, Obama reacted in a similar way to Prime Minister Howard by attempting to put stricter gun control laws in place. Now let's return to the point of view questions that were posed at the beginning of the lesson. Did you change your point of view? Do you think schools should be gun-free zones? Do you think people should have a permit to carry a gun? Do you think people should be able to buy semi-automatic weapons? Did you change your point of view based on the reading? Sometimes when we discuss controversial topics with others and they have a different point of view than you do, you might enter into a debate. Let's review some language techniques that can be used when debating others in writing or speaking. In this section of the lesson, we will review some language techniques you can use when debating a topic. Let's look at some useful expressions and transitions for debating when we want to agree or disagree with a point of view. Some of these can be used when writing, and some are more appropriate for use when speaking. I recommend that you pause the video here and take some time to read through these examples. Let's look at some useful expressions and transitions for debating when we want to interrupt or to contribute to a conversation during a debate. These are more appropriate for use when speaking. I recommend that you pause the video here and take some time to read through these examples. You can also download a copy of these phrases and more in the links below in the video description. In this section of the lesson, we will review an example of a debate using the techniques we just reviewed. Let's look at Sarah and Henry's point of view or their position on the debate. Sarah says, "I think teachers should carry guns while in school so that they can protect their students from a mass shooter." Henry thinks and says, "I think teachers should not carry guns because it would be more dangerous for students to be around them." Sarah begins the debate by saying, "I'd like to raise a point. I think teachers should have guns so that they can shoot a killer that enters the school." She is using the debating language expression, "I'd like to raise a point." Let's see what Henry says. Henry responds by saying, "I'm afraid I'd have to disagree. A student with mental illness inside the school might take the teacher's gun and use it." He is using the debating language expression, "I'm afraid I have to disagree." Let's see what Sarah says. I would like to add something. The teachers would be trained to use the guns safely and keep them locked up. She is using the debating language expression, I would like to add something. How will Henry respond? That may be true, but who would pay for the guns? Schools need their money to buy supplies for their students, not guns. He is using the debating language expression, that may be true, but what do you think Sarah might say? We're going to have to agree to disagree. You can't protect students from mass shooters if no one has a gun to protect themselves. Sarah is using the debating language phrase, we're going to have to agree to disagree. We are now at the end of our lesson. You have done a wonderful job. So let's do a final summary and review. In preparation for a debate, choose a controversial topic and research some facts about it. Choose a point of view or position. Choose some of the facts that you will use to support your point of view. Use debating language when speaking to someone who disagrees with your point of view. You can download this entire presentation and worksheets to practice using the links below. Muchas gracias por participar en nuestra lección. Después que termine este video, haz clic en los enlaces que se encuentran abajo en la descripción para descargar hojas de práctica para trabajar de forma independiente o con un compañero y acceder a un breve examen para medir tu progreso sobre el contenido de hoy. Finalmente, por favor visítanos y déjanos saber si estás interesado en más videos. Queremos mantenerte informado. Aquí verás una página de internet donde podrás unirte a nuestra lista de correos y también nuestro correo electrónico. Por favor, inscríbete a nuestro canal de YouTube y sigue aspirando. No te rindas.